Good morning, students. Welcome to 8th Standard Social Science revision class. So, it's revision time. For that, let's open our revision book for Unit Test 3. So, the portions for Unit Test 3 are History 2nd Unit From Trade to Territory and Geography 2nd Unit Weather and Climate. So, children, let's revise the portion one by one. So first let's see about History 2nd Unit From Trade to Territory. So in this lesson we have seen about how the British established their control over India by fighting numerous battles with the Indian native rulers or local rulers. So the Europeans mainly entered into India for trading purpose, especially for spice trading. The first European to enter was Portuguese. So, let's see about the various battles fought between the British and the native rulers. So, the first battle is Battle of Plassey, which was fought in the year 1757. The main reason behind this battle was the Black Hole tragedy of 1756. The Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dawla, opposed the British for misusing the death tax provided by Farrukh-i-Shiar, a Mughal emperor. So children, death tax means a free license issued for the British to trade in India. So, Siraj-ud-Dawla wanted to take revenge over the British. So for that reason, in a small dungeon room in Fort William at Calcutta, he captured 146 British prisoners of war for one night. The next day morning, when they opened the door, only 23 survived. So remaining 123 of the prisoners were found dead because of the suffocation. So this is known as the Black Hole tragedy of 1756. So this is the main reason behind Battle of Plassey. The war ended with the Treaty of Alinagar, which was signed between Siraj-ud-Dawla and the British on 9th February 1757. So now let's see about the Battle of Buxar, which was fought in the year 1764. So, the British won the Battle of Plassey with the help of Mir Jafar. He is a commander-in-chief in Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dawla's army. So, he favored British. So, in return, the British made Mir Jafar as a puppet ruler of Bengal. So, puppet ruler means he have to do whatever the British said to him, whatever the British ordered him. So, Mir Jafar also opposed the British for misusing the death tax. After that, the British made his son-in-law Mir Qasim as the ruler. So, this battle was fought between Mir Qasim, who also opposed the British for misusing the death tax, and then he joined with Shuja-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam of Oudh. So, he joined with Shuja-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam of Oudh territory. So this triple alliance, they fought against the British, and this battle is called Battle of Buxar, which was fought in 1764. So the British won the battle, and the battle ended with a treaty called Allahabad Treaty, which was signed on 20th February 1765. So according to the treaty, dual government system was established. So, dual system of government was established, and it was started in Bengal by Robert Clive. So, the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar, it is the initiation of the British rule in India for the next 2 centuries. So, the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar was the main reason for the British domination in India. So, next we have seen about the Carnatic Wars. So, the Carnatic Wars was fought under 3 phases. So, first one is the First Carnatic War, which was fought between the time period of 1746 to 1748. So, the main reason behind this war was Austrian War of Succession in Europe between the English and the French. So, in Austria, there is a war because of the succession problem. So, who will become the next ruler of Austria? So, there was a war between the English and the French. So, this First Carnatic War is considered as an echo of the Austria War was felt in India. So, So the main battle fought was the Battle of Adayar, which was fought in the year 1746. And the treaty signed, that is, the war ended with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, which was signed in 1748. So treaty means an agreement, legal agreement between the two parties. So according to this treaty, the succession war in Austria came to an end. Next, we have seen about the Second Carnatic War, which was fought between the time period of 1749 to 1754. So, the main reason behind this war was the succession problem in Carnatic as well as in Hyderabad region. The main battles fought was Battle of Ambur, which was fought in the year 1749, and Battle of Arcot in 1751. The war ended with a treaty called Treaty of Pondicherry, which was signed in the year 1755. So according to this treaty, Pondicherry was retained under French power. Then the Third Carnatic War, which was fought between the time period of 1756 to 1763. The main battle fought was Battle of Vandewash, which was fought in the year 1760, and the war ended with a treaty called Treaty of Paris, which was signed in 1763. So children, make a note of the time period of the war and the treaty signed in the particular war. So next, let's see about Anglo-Mysore War. So Anglo-Mysore War was fought under 4 phases, 4 time period. So Mysore means Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan have to come in your mind. So the first Anglo-Mysore War was fought between the time period of 1767 to 1769. The main treaty signed, that is, the war ended with the treaty called Treaty of Madras, which was signed in 1769. So the first Anglo-Mysore War was won by the Mysore Kingdom, which was ruled by Hyder Ali. The second Anglo-Mysore War was fought between the time period of 1780 to 1784. So during the second Anglo-Mysore War, during the course of the war, Hyder Ali died because of cancer, and his son Tipu Sultan succeeded the throne, and he continued the second Anglo-Mysore War. The second Anglo-Mysore War ended with a treaty called Treaty of Mangalore, which was signed between Tipu Sultan and the British in the year 1784. So now let's move on to third Anglo-Mysore War, which was fought between the time period of 1790 to 1792. So the main reason behind the third Anglo-Mysore War was the Tipu attacked Travancore. Travancore is a place in 1789 whose ruler was a friend is a friendly relationship with British. So Tipu attacked Travancore in 1789, whose ruler was in friendly relationship with British. So this was the main reason behind the third Anglo-Mysore War. So Tipu fought alone in this battle, and the battle ended with the Treaty of Srirangapatnam, which was signed between Tipu Sultan and the British in the year 1792. So according to this treaty, half of the kingdom of Tipu will come under the British. So according to this treaty, Tipu surrendered half of his kingdom to the British, and he agreed to pay 3.6 crore of rupees as a fine. He agreed to pay 3.6 crore of rupees as a fine, and also he gave 2 of his sons as hostages to the British. The Treaty of Srirangapatnam was the main reason behind the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, which was fought in the year 1799. So the Treaty of Srirangapatnam was the main reason. So other reasons are Tipu sought help from the French officers, and the French officers, they came to Srirangapatnam and they founded a club called Jacobin Club, and they planted a tree called Tree of Liberty. So this is the other causes for the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. So during this war, Tipu died, and after this war, the British occupied all the territories, and they made Krishna Raja Udayar, a miner, to rule the Mysore kingdom. And Tipu's family was sent to the fort of Vellore. So Tipu's family was sent to the fort of Vellore. So now let's move on to Anglo-Maratha Wars. So it is between the British and the Maratha territory. So it was fought under 3 phases. So first Anglo-Maratha War was fought between the time period of 1775 to 1782. The treaties signed are the Treaty of Surat, which was signed in the year 1775, and Treaty of Purandar, which was signed in 1776, and the Treaty of Salbai, which was signed on 17th May 1782. So the Treaty of Salbai, it restored peace between the Marathas and the British for about 20 years. And then the Second Anglo-Maratha War was fought between the time period of 1803 to 1805. The main treaty signed was the Treaty of Dearborn, which was signed in 1803, and Treaty of Surji and Arjungaon, which was signed in 1803. So next is the Third Anglo-Maratha War, which was fought between the time period of 1817 to 1818. So the Third Anglo-Maratha War was fought between 1817 to 1818. And after the Anglo-Maratha War, the Peshwaship title was totally abolished, and Bajirao II was the last Peshwa of Maratha, and he was given an annual pension of 8 lakh rupees. So now let's see how the British administered the India. So how the British administered the India. The British administrative organization in India was categorized under 4 services. First is civil, army, police and judiciary. So the British, they separated their service. So first one is civil, army, police and judiciary. Satyendranath Tagore, the elder brother of poet Rabindranath Tagore, was the first Indian to pass the ICS examination in 1863. So children, make a note of it. It may be asked in one word. Satyendranath Tagore is the elder brother of Rabindranath Tagore. He was the first Indian to pass ICS, means Indian Civil Service exam, in 1863. Next, Sir Elijah Impey was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at Fort William in Bengal. So Sir Elijah Impey was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at Fort William in Bengal. And Sir Thiruvarur Muthuswami Iyer was the first Indian Chief Justice of Madras High Court. Sir Thiruvarur Muthuswami Iyer was the first Indian Chief Justice of Madras High Court. Next, we'll move on to the subsidiary alliance. So what is the meaning of subsidiary alliance and who introduced this policy? Lord Wellesley introduced the system of subsidiary alliance to bring the princely states under the control of British. So princely state means the state ruled by the minor, the prince. So Lord Wellesley, he introduced the subsidiary alliance to bring the princely states under the control of British. So what are the main features in this alliance means? An Indian ruler had to dissolve his own armed forces and accept the British force. So the Indian ruler, they have to give up their own army force and they have to recruit all the British officers in their army. The second point is, towards the maintenance charges of the army, he should make annual payments. The Indian ruler must give annual payment as a maintenance charge of army to the British. Third is, all the non-English European officials should be turned out of the state. So all the non-English means those who are not belong to British. So all the non-English European official must send out of the state. The other main feature of this alliance are, the native ruler should deal with foreign states only through the English company. So the native ruler is the Indian ruler. He have to deal, for example, for trade and commerce. So he have to deal with other country only under the British order. The British would undertake to defend the state. So the British defend the state. So these are all the main features involved in the subsidiary alliance. So what are the merits because of this subsidiary alliance for the British is? So first one is, the British company maintained a large army at the expense of the Indian rulers. So by getting the maintenance charges from the Indian rulers, the British company, they maintained a large army. And all the Frenchmen in the service of native rulers were dismissed. So as we have seen, one of the feature in subsidiary alliances, all the non-English men should be turned out of the state. So, all the Frenchmen in the service were dismissed by the native rulers. Next is, the British company began to control the foreign policy of the princely state. So, they began to interfere in the foreign policy. Wellesley diplomacy made the British the paramount power in India. So, this subsidiary alliance, it made the British to become a dominating power in India. So, now let's see what are the defects of the subsidiary alliance. The main defect is the subsidiary alliance made the Indian rulers weak, oppressive and irresponsible because everything is carried out by the British. So the Indian ruler, they became very weak, oppressive and irresponsible towards their service. So now let's move on to doctrine of lapse. So before doctrine of lapse, the first Indian state to accept the subsidiary alliance was Hyderabad in 1798. So the first Indian ruler to accept the subsidiary alliance was Hyderabad in 1798. So let's move on to doctrine of lapse. Doctrine of lapse was introduced by Lord Dalhousie. So Lord Dalhousie adopted a new policy known as doctrine of lapse to extend the British Empire. So the main motive behind the subsidiary alliance or doctrine of lapse is to extend their territory. And from these two policies only, British annexed most of the territories from the Indian rulers. So now let's see what is the definition of doctrine of lapse. So Dalhousie made use of this precedent and declared in 1848 that if the native rulers adopted children without the prior permission of the company, only the personal properties of the rulers would go to the adopted sons and the kingdoms would go to the British paramount power. So according to the doctrine of lapse, if the native ruler, that is the Indian ruler, he didn't have any children, he can adopt the child with the permission from the British. But if it didn't ask any permission, only the personal properties of the ruler would go to the adopted son. Only the property of the ruler would go to the adopted son. But the kingdom will come under the British power. So this is the meaning of doctrine of lapse. So by applying this policy only, Dalhousie annexed Satara in 1848, Jaipur and Sambalpur in 1849, Bahat in 1850, Udaipur in 1852, Jhansi in 1853 and Nagpur in 1854. So by applying the doctrine of lapse policy, Dalhousie annexed these states. So now let's see what are the factors for the success of British in India. So what are the factors for the success of British in India? So first one is they have a greater naval power. Naval power is overseas, army overseas, development of textile, scientific division of labor, economic prosperity and skillful diplomacy of the British, that is the policies, that is subsidiary policy and the doctrine of lapse. And the feeling of insecurity among the Indian merchants, the inequality and ignorance of the Indian kings. So these are all the main reason behind the success of the British in India. So from the battles you would have seen that every Indian ruler, they would have sought the help from the British because they don't have any equality among the rulers. So the main reason is the inequality and ignorance of the Indian kings. So now let's see some of the most expected questions in this lesson. So the one word question will be given in the worksheet. You can follow that. So here I am going to give only 2 marks and detail. So the first question is write a short note on black hole tragedy. So first you have to mention the year. So the black hole tragedy occurred in the year 1756. So the reason behind the black hole tragedy. So there was a small dungeon room in the Fort William in Calcutta where troops of the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj ud Dowlah, held 146 British prisoners of war for one night. Next day morning, when the door was opened, 123 of the prisoners found dead because of suffocation. Next, what were the benefits derived by the English after the Battle of Plassey? So the answer is, after the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the company was granted undisputed right to have free trade in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. It received the place of 24 Parganas in Bengal. So after the Battle of Plassey, the company got the right to collect the tax in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. The third question is, mention the causes for the Battle of Buxar. Mir Qasim, the son-in-law of Nawab of Bengal, he revolted as he was angry with the British for misusing the death tax. So death tax are the free duty passes. So this was the main reason behind the Battle of Buxar. Fourth question, what were the causes for the first Mysore War? So first reason is Hyder Ali growing power and friendly relations with the French became the matter of concern for the English East India Company. The Marathas, the Nizam and the English entered into triple alliance against the Hyder Ali. So these two are the main causes for the first Mysore War. The fifth question, bring out the results of the third Maratha War. So after the third Maratha War, the Maratha Confederacy was dissolved and Peshwaship was abolished. Most of the territory of Peshwa, Baji Rao II, was annexed and became the part of the Bombay Presidency. The Baji Rao II was the last Peshwa of Maratha and he was given an annual pension of 8 lakh rupees. So this was the result after the third Maratha War. So name the state signed into subsidiary alliance. So the first Indian state to accept the subsidiary alliance was Hyderabad in the year 1798, followed by Tanjore 1799, Oudh 1801, Peshwa 1802, Bonsal 1803, Gwalior 1804, Indore 1817, Jaipur, Udaipur and Jodhpur 1818. So children, kindly memorize the year for each state and for each battle and also for the treaty signed. Now let's move on to detailed questions. So first one is, write an essay on Second Carnatic War. So for that the answer must be in the following format. First you have to explain the causes for the Second Carnatic War. Then explain Battle of Ambur of 1749 and Battle of Arcot of 1751. And then you have to mention some points under Treaty of Pondicherry in 1755. So the answer for this question must be in this format. Let's move on to second question. Give an account of the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. So similarly, explain the causes for the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. Then the course of the war. So during the war, who fought between the which territory? And then the result of the war. So after the war, the Mysore was ruled by Krishna Raja Udayar. So you have to explain this. Third question. Describe the policy adopted by Lord Dalhousie to expand the British Empire in India. So first you have to explain the doctrine of lapse policy. So it was introduced by Lord Dalhousie. Then mention the states annexed by applying this policy, that is Satara. So you have to mention the place along with the year. Then, how did Lord Wellesley expand the British power in India? So, Wellesley means subsidiary alliance must come into your mind. Explain the subsidiary alliance policy and then the main feature of the subsidiary alliance policy. The fifth question is, explain the causes for the success of English in India. So, explain the at least any 5 factors for the influence of British in India. Now let's move on to geography second unit, weather and climate. So first you have to know what is the definition of weather. So what is weather? Weather is a day-to-day conditions or state of the atmosphere at any place as regards to sunshine, temperature, cloud cover, wind fog condition, air pressure, humidity, precipitation and such other elements. So weather is a day-to-day condition. So now let's see what is climate. Climate is generally defined as average condition or state of a weather of a place or a region. So weather is day-to-day condition for a short period of time. So weather may change often, whereas climate is the average condition and it doesn't change often. The earth contains about 78% of nitrogen, 21% of oxygen, 0.97 percentage of argon, 0.03 percentage of carbon dioxide, and 0.04 percentage of other traces of gases and water vapor. So the Earth atmosphere contains 78 percentage of nitrogen and 21 percentage of oxygen. So keep this in mind. Climate means the average condition of the Earth atmosphere. So next is, the word climate is derived from the ancient Greek word climo, which means inclination. Inclination means the slanting position of the earth. So the word climate is derived from the Greek word climo, which means inclination. The scientific study of weather is called meteorology, and the scientific study of climate is called climatology. So the scientific study of weather is called meteorology, and the scientific study of climate is called climatology. So now let's see what are the elements of weather and climate. So weather and climate both have the same elements. So first one is temperature, rainfall, pressure, humidity and wind. So weather and climate elements are same. First one is temperature, rainfall, pressure, humidity and wind. So now let's see one by one. So first is temperature. So the definition of temperature is the degree of heat present in the air is termed as temperature. So temperature means the degree of heat present in the air. So next is measuring temperature. So how you will measure a temperature? The temperature of a unit volume of a air at a given time is measured in scales like Celsius, Fahrenheit and Kelvin. So the temperature is measured in scales like Celsius, Fahrenheit and Kelvin. So now let's move on to the heat zones on the earth. So the three main heat zone is torrid zone, temperate zone and frigid zone. So the torrid zone in the northern hemisphere lies between equator and Tropic of Cancer, and it receives the direct rays from the sun, and this region will receive more heat. And the torrid zone in the southern hemisphere lies between equator and Tropic of Capricorn. Then the temperate zone in the northern hemisphere lies between Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle. In the southern hemisphere between the Tropic of Capricorn and Antarctic Circle. Then the frigid zone in the northern hemisphere between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole, and in the southern hemisphere between the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole. So the temperate zone receives moderate sunlight, whereas the frigid zone, it receives no sunlight. That's why the poles are covered with snow. So children, the three main heat zones are torrid zone, temperate zone and frigid zone. Frigid zone is also called polar zone. Then isolines. So the distribution of weather elements are shown by means of isolines on map. So the distribution of weather elements. So weather elements are the temperature, humidity, air pressure. So these and all comes under weather element. So they are shown in the form of isolines on the map. So what is isolines? Isolines are those which joins the places of equal values. So isolines are the lines, imaginary lines, which join the place of equal value. For example, in Madras, the temperature is 36.2 degrees Celsius, and in Tanjore, the temperature is 36.2 degrees Celsius. Means there will be a connection between Madras to Tanjore, an imaginary line. So isoline is an imaginary line connecting the places having the equal values. The highest temperature ever recorded on Earth is 56.7 degrees Celsius and 134 degrees Fahrenheit. It was recorded on 10th July 1913 at Greenland Ranch of Death Valley, California, USA. So the highest temperature ever recorded is 56.7 degrees Celsius. Next, the lowest temperature ever recorded is minus 89.2 degrees Celsius or minus 128.6 degree Fahrenheit. So in Kelvin means it is 184.0 degree Kelvin. It was recorded on 21st July 1983 at Soviet Vostok Station in Antarctica. Now let's move on to rainfall. Rain is a liquid water in the form of droplets that have condensed from the atmospheric water vapor and then become heavy enough to fall under gravity. So rainfall is the result of condensation. So the water vapor will get evaporated and it will get condensed to form clouds, and the clouds will become heavy enough and they will burst out in the form of precipitation, and that is called rain. So rainfall is measured by using rain gauge. So the instrument which is used to measure the rainfall is rain gauge. So now let's move on to air pressure. So air pressure is the weight of the air above a given area on the earth's surface is called atmospheric pressure or air pressure. So the weight of the air above the given area on the earth's surface is called air pressure. So the air pressure is measured by using barometer. So air pressure is measured by using barometer. The standard air pressure at the sea level. So the standard air pressure at the sea level is 1013.25 MB. So the standard air pressure at sea level is 1013.25 MB. The highest ever air pressure at sea level was recorded at Agata, Russia on 31st December 1968. The pressure was 1083.8 MB. The lowest air pressure of 870 MB was recorded at Typhoon Tip near Guam, Mariana Island in Pacific Ocean on 12th October 1979. So children, make a note of highest ever recorded pressure and lowest ever recorded pressure. So now let's move on to humidity. So what is humidity? Humidity means the degree of water vapor present in the atmosphere in gaseous form in particular time and place. So humidity means what? The amount of water vapor, the amount of moisture content present in the atmosphere. So humidity can be expressed in different ways. So the three different ways are specific humidity, absolute humidity and relative humidity. So the three different ways to express the humidity is specific humidity, absolute humidity and relative humidity. Now let's see which instrument is used to measure the humidity. So hygrometer is used to measure the humidity. So humidity is measured by using hygrometer. Let's move on to wind. The horizontal movement of air is called wind. So the horizontal movement of air is called wind, whereas the vertical movement of air is called air current. Horizontal movement is called wind. Vertical movement is called air current. Al-Balaki, an Arab geographer, collected climatic data from the Arab travelers and he prepared the first climatic atlas of the world. So children, make a note of it. Who prepared the first climatic atlas means Al-Balaki. He is an Arab geographer. The wind system are broadly categorized into three as follows. So the three major types of wind system are planetary winds, seasonal winds and local winds. So planetary winds is also called permanent winds because they blow in the same direction throughout the year. Seasonal winds, they will come for a particular season, which is also called monsoon winds. Local winds, they will blow in particular place. For example, sea breeze, land breeze. So this is local winds. So the three major categories of wind system are planetary winds, seasonal winds and local winds. And the Beaufort scale is a scale used for measuring the wind speed. Beaufort scale is used for measuring the wind speed, and this scale was developed in 1805 by Francis Beaufort, an officer of the Royal Navy, and first officially used by HMS Beagle. So the Beaufort scale is used for measuring wind speed. It was developed by Francis Beaufort in the year 1805 and it was used by an officer called HMS Beagle. The meteorologist measures wind direction using wind vane or weathercock, and wind speed is measured by using anemometer. So wind speed is measured by an instrument called anemometer. Is a diagram used to depict the direction and periods of the prevailing winds on the map. So on the map, the wind rose is a diagram which is used to measure or to depict the direction of the wind. Then the meteograph or the triple register is an instrument which records the wind speed and the direction as well as sunshine and precipitation. So the meteograph, which is also called triple register, it record the wind speed, the wind direction, sunshine as well as precipitation. Another important fact is Brazil has a large area where the average wind speed is low. So Brazil has a large area where the average wind speed is low. So now let's move on to the most expected questions in this lesson. So here I am going to give only the short answer and detail. For 1 mark you can follow the worksheet. So define weather and climate. So already we have seen weather is day-to-day condition, whereas climate is average condition. Next, what is insolation? So insolation is the solar radiation that reaches the Earth's surface. The Earth and its atmosphere gets heated from the sun through insolation. So insolation means solar radiation. Then what is meant by atmospheric pressure, humidity and wind? So they either may ask the definition of atmospheric pressure. So atmospheric pressure means what? The weight of the air above the surface. Humidity means the moisture content. And then wind, the horizontal movement of air. Then write a short note on planetary winds. So planetary winds is also called permanent winds, and they will blow in the same direction throughout the year. Then isolines. So isolines are the imaginary lines connecting the places having the equal values. So now let's move on to distinguish between weather and climate. So weather is day-to-day condition of the atmosphere at any place. Climate means average condition. So this is the main key word, and it refers to short periods like day, week and month. It is determined by measuring weather elements for a long period of time, usually for 35 years. So the major factors are sunshine, temperature, cloud cover, wind, fog, air pressure and other elements. It depends on latitude, altitude, direction of winds, distance from sea are some factors determining the climate. So now let's move on to another distinguish between absolute humidity and relative humidity. So absolute humidity means the mass or weight of water vapor present per unit volume of air. Relative means ratio between the actual amount of water vapor present in the air and the maximum amount of water vapor it can hold at a given temperature. It is expressed usually in grams per cubic meter of air. Relative humidity is expressed as a percentage. The third distinguishes between the permanent winds and the seasonal winds. The ones which blow almost in the same direction throughout the year. Winds which can change the direction according to the season in a year. For example, blow from sea to land in summer and from land to sea in winter. It is also called planetary winds, example trade winds. It is also called monsoon winds, example northeast monsoon winds. So now let's move on to give reasons. First one is the weather and climate in different regions vary because of the angles of sun rays, the length of daytime, altitude, distribution of land and water bodies, location and direction of mountain ranges, air pressure, winds and ocean currents are the major factors which affect the weather and climate of the region. So this is the reason for the variation in weather and climate in different regions. The second one is temperature decreases with increase in altitude because the temperature varies both horizontally and vertically. Temperature decreases with increasing height is known as lapse rate, which is 6.5 degrees Celsius per 1000 meters in troposphere. So children, the temperature decreases with increase in altitude because the temperature varies both horizontally and vertically. So the temperature decreases with increasing height, and this concept is called lapse rate. The third question is, mountain climbers carry oxygen cylinders while ascending peaks because with decreasing air pressure, the availability of oxygen to breathe also decreases. So with decreasing air pressure, the availability of oxygen to breathe also decreases. At very high altitudes, the atmospheric pressure and available of oxygen gets so low that people can become sick and even die. That's why mountain climbers use bottled oxygen when they ascend very high peaks. The fourth reason is, why do your ears pop in airplanes? The reason is, as you go up in an airplane, the atmospheric pressure becomes lower than the pressure of the air inside your ears. So because of the imbalance of the outside pressure and your pressure inside your ears begins to pop. So your ears pop because they are trying to equalize or match the pressure. So this is the reason behind that. So now let's see some detailed question and answers. So first is, how is temperature measured? If the question is asked like this, means first you have to give the definition for temperature and how to measure the temperature using the temperature scales like Celsius, Fahrenheit and Kelvin. Then second question, write about the wind and its type. So define the wind and explain the three types of wind system: planetary winds, seasonal winds and local winds. Third question is, list out the weather elements and associated measuring instrument. For that, give the definition of temperature, rainfall, pressure, humidity and wind, and give the instrument name which is used to measure the specific element. For example, temperature means thermometer, rainfall rain gauge, humidity hygrometer, wind anemometer, air pressure barometer. So children, with this we have come to an end of the revision session. So all the very best for your unit test 3. So preparation is the key to success. So prepare well, study well and do your test well. Thank you.